Welcome to the Astrology Star Sisters. I'm Elizabeth Liz Muschett, and today we're talking about Jupiter's ingress into Cancer in 2025. And my astrology star sister is astrologer Dabney Lawless. She's a colleague and a friend. And welcome, Dabney.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So nice to be here with you.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here, and you're going to talk about an exciting subject about the Jupiter ingress because we have all these planets changing signs this year.
Yes, a lot of intense energy, and I think people are probably feeling that intensity. And so I am somewhat optimistic and hopeful that the Cancer energy will bring a little bit of calm in the midst of all of the kind of more outward energy that is coming our way.
Thank you, and we're going to get a hold of Dabney. Her website is lawlessastrology.com. And to get a hold of me, my website is alightpath.com, and we enjoy hearing from you. And we're talking about the Jupiter ingress into Cancer.
Yeah.
So I'll let you take it away.
Okay, yeah. So Jupiter is going to go into Cancer. It's currently in the sign of Gemini. So Jupiter in Gemini is a little bit more frenetic, and it's a little bit more, big ideas and kind of acting without thinking. And Jupiter magnifies anything that it touches. And so in the sign of Gemini, there's been a lot of noise, and there's been a lot of like, where do I look? Gemini is the twins. So oftentimes we have to do things twice under the sign of Gemini. With Jupiter and Gemini, I've definitely found that. My cat's going to say hello. And so with Jupiter and Gemini, like I said, it's been all about ideas, and there's been a lot of new ideas. There's been a lot of mental activity, but there's also been a lot of noise and not really things that we can tap into the heart. It's been a little bit more tapping into the mind and expanding the mind. And, Gemini is this very, like I said, frenetic energy. There's just a lot of curiosity and wanting to try new things and experimental. So when it goes into Cancer, it's a very different energy. So Gemini, like I said, there's so much going on. But when Jupiter goes into Cancer, it's exalted in Cancer. It means it really likes to be in Cancer. It's kind of like, oh, this feels like a place I can be. Because Jupiter is kind of like this, beneficent king. And so in the sign of Cancer, it's like thinking about, a king that likes to entertain and have, a big goblet and everyone at the table. And so there's just this kind of sense of wanting to be generous and wanting to get back into the heart. So the descriptions for Cancer are more like nurturing and love and emotions. These are all kind of Cancer things. The archetype for Cancer is the mother. So if you think about the good mother archetype, and so there's the bad mother archetype, of course, but the good mother is one that is there unconditionally loving you, protecting you, providing for you, nurturing you, feeding you, creating a beautiful home, making you feel like you belong, holding down the traditions of the home, really, authentic valuing of loved ones. That's the high expression of Jupiter in Cancer, is kind of an expansion of that really coming home energy. Now, there's a shadow with everything. And so Jupiter in Cancer can also be kind of clannish. There can be a little bit of a sense of a little too conservative. Gemini want to experience things and try things. Cancers are much more reserved by nature. And so Jupiter in Cancer is going to kind of expand the more conservative. And I'm not necessarily talking about politics here. I'm talking about kind of like, less risk taking. And so Jupiter in Cancer is more about kind of just like, before we got on, we were talking about how, it's not exactly a great time to lose weight, because it could be just about like, sitting down with a big meal and kind of, that sort of energy.
Exactly. Thank you.
So the last time Jupiter was in Cancer was summer of 2013 to summer of 2014. And so I think when Jupiter and Saturn as well move into new signs, because they both have this, where it's not so fast that we don't feel it that much, but it's also not so long that it's hard to figure out what was affecting our lives. Whenever Jupiter moves into a new sign, it's nice to reflect on the seeds that you planted during that time and how has it grown and what do you want to plant now. So as an example, the last time Jupiter was in Cancer, I bought this home. And so it's crazy how fast time flies. And so you can kind of reflect and think about, what was I doing in 2013 to 2014? What were the things that had to do with home and family that were being nurtured and cultivated during that time? And what are their goals for this next go round? How can you expand upon that? So, it's a really good time always for like remodeling or for moves or purchasing real estate, because it's things that have to do with home. But it's also a good time to do things with family. So do you have anything you'd want to add to that?
Yes, family is very, a big focus. Maybe doing some kind of family gathering or get together if your family lives different parts of the country. It's like this would be a good time to plan, to get together at some point. And, we can plan for Jupiter being in Cancer that, maybe I need to make a couple of adjustments to my nutritional needs or my health needs. And so, like, if you kind of make a few adjustments now, it might be easier so that your waistline doesn't grow at that time.
Yeah, exactly. And so Jupiter is considered sort of lucky. So people who are cancers during this time, you will have Jupiter conjunct your sun, which gives you more energy and it can give you kind of luck. It's typically considered somewhat of a lucky time. But anything having to do with family, so it also is favored if for estate planning. So, if you don't have a will in place or it's time to update it, doing that under Jupiter and Cancer is a good thing.
Well, and you might want to take a cooking class on the style of food that maybe you haven't experimented with, and experiment with that. And yes, make plans to make changes in your home. Maybe it's just, some fresh paint or
Mhm.
some different throw pillows for your couch in a different color because you want to update or change it a little bit.
Yeah.
I've been
Yeah.
cleaning my closets out and doing a little feng shui in preparation.
Awesome. I love that. I love that. So here's the actual the chart for the day that it goes in to Cancer, and so it looks like it is conjunct Mercury the day it goes into Cancer, and that is going to also be a really nice time to have conversations and expand everything that has to do with, again, the heart and your more compassionate, empathetic understanding of how you want to process your emotions.
Exactly, and this chart is, on June 9th for Washington, DC. Um, Anything else you'd like to say about this chart?
So let's see. I'm just seeing if there's anything that jumps out at me that's interesting. So if this is when it goes in Washington, D.C., we've got a Scorpio rising, and that Jupiter and the sun are both going to be in the eighth house. So, I think that this is, if I had any kind of like more predictive things to say for this time, it would just be that this is about getting to the root of your emotions. And it's really about a time of like, it can kind of kick off um, a more empathetic way of communicating and maximizing some of the unconscious um, tendencies and buried emotions that maybe we haven't wanted to get in touch with. And so it could be a time of actually like finding forgiveness and processing emotions in a new way. So therapy. And so this is, when we look at a chart like this, we're looking at what's going on for the collective. And so the collective, meaning all of us here, that's the potential. The potential is to do therapy and to, or get an astrology reading and to kind of have a little bit of your mind connecting more with your heart.
Well, and I'd say to have compassion and grace with yourself and others equally, and a good time to journal, perhaps.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that's Sun in Gemini too. So, just a little bit more about Cancer. It's a cardinal sign. And, we talk about Cancer as if it's like this mushy gushy, emotional, Cancer's always, when I was growing up, like I'd get those little star scrolls and, the description of Cancer in the magazine was always like, you're moody. And I don't know that Cancers are moody. They're moony, is what someone once said. And Cancer is ruled by the moon. And so there is something kind of, a really deep connection with not only the waters, but the sky. And if you think about the ocean and the tides are controlled by the moon, right? And so it's a similar sort of thing that Cancer energy is really, really tuned into the emotional tides. I don't think we're any more moody than any of the other signs. I'm personally Cancer, so, but I think the superpower of Cancers that's often overlooked is that they're very strong and very strategic. So, the Cancer is the crab. And if you think about the crab, it is very adept at sidestepping, right? Like it kind of can like get around obstacles, or it can pull into its shell when it needs to. That's kind of the way I like to think about Cancers, is they're just much more strategic than they're given credit for. There was a giant survey done about what sign was most likely to be a CEO, and it was Cancer by like leaps and bounds, which is interesting because, and I wonder if that's still true today. I think that survey was done in like the 90s or the 2000s, but I'd be interested to see if it's changed over time. But Cancers have very good business acumen, because they do want to protect and take care of everyone. They're very, strategic about their assets, and they're very authentic. They have emotional connections with people. It's important for Cancers though to have time alone. They tend to be more introverted, even if they have other things that make them extroverted as well. There is something about needing time alone and connecting with nature, like walks, gardening. So when Jupiter is in the sign of Cancer, one of the things that I think we are all going to be experiencing is an opportunity to reconnect with our more natural instincts, to be able to reconnect with the tides, right? Thinking about like, how can we work with the cosmos to get back in touch with our own personal emotions? I also think there's been a lot of division in our country, especially. A lot of families have been impacted by COVID and by, like arguments over vaccines and things, problems with, political parties and people having, issues with loved ones that have fallen into addiction. So there's been all of these like really kind of challenging things in our country. And Cancer is going to come into Jupiter and offer an opportunity for forgiveness. Gemini's not really about forgiveness. Gemini is too like curious and thinking and wanting to experiment, to actually sit with their emotions long enough to recognize how important it is to forgive. And that forgiveness doesn't have to be an active thing with your family. Like, you don't have to tell them you forgive them, but you can still do that work on your own. So that's something that I think is very important during this time, is we have an opportunity to feel the pain of the past several years and then potentially move past it. So, some suggestions for that would be somatic practices like Reiki. I know you do some Reiki, as so you can always, you give her a call. Massage, anything kind of like where you get back into the body. And, like she was saying before, like healthy eating, taking care of yourself, self nurturing. It's not a time, when Jupiter is in Cancer, it's not a time to be ambitious necessarily. It is a time to take advantage of the opportunity to allow others to care for you and to care for yourself.
And Jupiter is exalted in Cancer and really likes to be in the sign of Cancer. And then I wanted to make a comment about how you mentioned the moon. The moon changes signs every 2.5 days. So it contacts and has a new energy. So people could say that's a moodiness because the emotions and moods are changing every 2.5 days. It's like it's expressed in a different way through each different sign.
Absolutely. I personally don't think it's a moodiness. Like, that's what I think, that the moon affects everybody. I just think that we're like more in touch with it.
Yes, very. The cancers can be sensitive, and you can
Okay,
have a
I'll give you
cancer.
that one. Very
You,
sensitive, very sensitive.
you can. There's cancer somewhere in your astrology chart, whether you're a Cancer sun or moon or ascendant. There's cancer in your chart somewhere, so everybody's gonna express it in their way. So.
Absolutely. Okay, so some of the Jupiter and Cancer themes that, I've touched on some of these, but compassion. So there's an opportunity. So the healthy expression of this is going to be a rise in compassion, compassion for yourself, compassion for others. There is an opportunity here. Uranus will be going in Gemini, which there is kind of a division there, but I think I'm glad that Uranus in Gemini is not happening at the same time as Jupiter in Gemini. I'm glad that Jupiter coming into Cancer will give somewhat less of a bifurcation, because we have such a bifurcation in energy right now. Like, it's either this or it's that. And Jupiter in Cancer is less this or that. It's a little bit more comprehensive, big picture. Like, we can all be together. We can all care for those less powerful than us. It's a little bit more empathetic, actually a lot more empathetic, because cancers do feel other people's energy. And so Jupiter in Cancer, my cat is just bouncing all around. What are you doing, girlfriend? Sorry, everybody. So one of the things I think that we're going to see, and we've seen in past Jupiter in Cancer times, is, people are going to pay attention to Cancer themes, right? So one of the themes is children. So we're going to have to look carefully at taking care of, how are we going to fix this broken childcare system? That's going to have to, come to the forefront. There's an opportunity here, safety in school. So, all the school shootings and things like that, there might be kind of more of an emphasis on paying attention to children, because children, the mother has to take care of children. Also, women and reproductive health care will be something that you're going to read about in the news. There's going to be an emergence of leaders who, are on the forefront of telling the stories during Jupiter in Cancer. The environment, especially water. In past Jupiter in Cancer times, we've had, very devastating typhoons, hurricanes, and floods. And that's something that is also mirrored with, Neptune and Pisces. And so, we've seen kind of the rise in Cancer, or we've seen in water energy and crisis.
Well, that's really good information to take away. So we'll go back to the next slide.
Okay, and so prominent names with Cancer signatures. So this is another thing that I found, that in the past, when Jupiter is in Cancer, leaders have big things happen to them with Cancer signatures. Like in the past, like Nelson Mandela, who's a Cancer, that he became the president of South Africa. The Dalai Lama received the Nobel Peace Prize. He is a Cancer. Malala Yousafzai, also a Cancer, she received the Nobel Peace Prize. So prominent names with Cancer signatures that I predict we'll see a lot more of. Now, I actually predicted this Elon Musk thing before he became the co-president, but Prince William has a Cancer sun and moon. Eric Adams, again, this was done before all of the controversy that we're seeing right now with him in the news. Cancer sun, moon, Mercury, Jupiter, and Uranus. So he's got a lot of Cancer energy. And then, of course, Elon Musk, who's a Cancer sun, ascendant, and Mercury. So we're already seeing them in the news even before this happens. But maybe Prince William will become King William. So, and maybe we'll just have to see by summer and next year what's in the news with those other two. But they were the leaders that I found Cancer energy prominent in right now.
Well, and so do you think people, if they have a lot of planets in Cancer in their own natal astrology, that they'll be seeing some change this year?
What I think is it gives you an opportunity. It's kind of like there's flow. And if you have a lot of Cancer planets or a Cancer sun or moon or rising sign, what happens is you're given a little bit of like a vitamin B shot, and there's sort of like a flow that you can get into. And once you're in that flow, there's opportunities. But with any sort of Jupiter transit, they can pass you by. So it's about kind of paying attention. So it's kind of like when I bought this house, if I hadn't been motivated to buy a house, then, I bought it at a good time. And so it's gone up in value. And so like, there's like little things like that where the seeds you plant now will do well with Cancerian themes.
Thank you for sharing that.
Would you agree with that?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And, Jupiter lots of times can be a point where I've seen Jupiter very active in somebody's chart, and there is a lot of house buying or change, downsizing or getting a bigger house or moving in together. Like lots of times there is some kind of move where you live.
Yeah. And so I think it's about looking at your own personal chart. But for those of us with strong Cancer signatures, there is a newfound energy and like maybe some good luck headed your way. But you just have to be very careful because luck is always a double-edged sword. So, to kind of tap into your strategic Cancer, because anytime Jupiter is in a sign, Jupiter expands it. And we don't always make the best decisions when we think we're like on a hot streak. So you think about like the gambler who just keeps going, right? Like that can be Jupiter too, where it's like you don't really recognize your limitations and, you get in over your head, right? So that's the one thing I would caution anytime like Jupiter is touching an important part of your chart is like, don't be cautious. Grab the opportunity, but still be smart and kind of don't think you have all the answers, because you may not.
Well, yeah, some doors might be open and opportunities presented to you. So don't say no right away. Think about it, or, maybe explore a little bit about it before you say no.
Right.
Because we might have that feeling if we just say no to anything because we don't want to take anything else on. And it might be what we're being offered is a really great opportunity.
Right. Yep. So yeah, it looks like there's a grand trine there that you highlighted. Did you want to, talk about the trine between Vesta and Pallas Athena?
Yes, because it's with Jupiter and Mercury's in that trine too. So Vesta is an asteroid goddess, and so is Pallas Athena. And Vesta is about home and hearth. And then Pallas Athena is using our wisdom and strategy. So it's with that trine to Jupiter and Mercury, I like that combination that they're all working together and really pay attention to the opportunities that are being presented. It's like, of course, be wise and safe with yourself, and some new communication could be happening. You might want to journal, you might want to start writing a book, you might want to start a blog, or a podcast. What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, with the conjunction with Mercury, for sure. I guess for me, it feels a little bit more internal and emotional because we're looking at all the water houses too, especially. So, obviously this is just for right when it goes in Washington, D.C. So the chart might look different elsewhere. But when I look at this particular chart and the themes, I guess, yeah, it's just about bringing your emotions and your mind together. So it's kind of like the melding of the two, like being strategic with how you feel, not just going on gut instinct, but paying attention to your gut. It's kind of like the two have to come together.
And this is a water grand trine, but Pallas Athena is out of sign, but it's pretty close. So I added that in there. And then
Awesome.
do you want to talk about the Jupiter square Saturn?
So Jupiter square Saturn, so that's another thing where, I think the Saturn squaring of Jupiter actually is not a bad thing because, like I said, Jupiter can go overboard sometimes. Jupiter can kind of rush into things. Being in Cancer, it's a little bit more conservative, but in past Jupiter and Cancer times, I was looking at, back in history, and that's when we had like the Japanese internment camps. That's when we had McCarthyism. Again, you think about like us versus them clannishness, like my tribe is the right tribe, right? And so Saturn being in Aries, the possibility of Saturn reigning in that clannishness is there, but also in the sign of Aries, there can be like a forcefulness. And so there can be sort of this push and pull, an uncomfortableness with your emotions, right? Like this sense of like, this doesn't feel right. I don't know how to do this. And Saturn says, well, you have to just grow up and get it done. Saturn in Aries is very much like the stern disciplinarian, like, it's like the warrior going into battle. Like you can't have warriors who are afraid to jump out of the, plane with their parachute on. Like it's like, get out, just go do it, push you out of the, plane, push you into the deep end. And Jupiter in Cancer is like, but wait, that doesn't feel right. That's not how I want to feel. So I think there might be a little of that kind of friction where we, the two of them maybe can pull each other back from the brink a little bit. You think that Aries is the stronger sign, but Aries is the first sign and Cancer is the fourth sign. And so Cancer can kind of say, hey, maybe we don't want to just jump out of the airplane in this moment. Like maybe, maybe there's another way to do it. And with Mercury there, that favors like diplomatic relations. So maybe like versus being all gung ho, like attacking, running into the burning building, maybe there's more of a diplomatic solution there too, so I don't know. What do you think?
Well, they're both in cardinal signs, so that's initiating and creating. And Saturn is, restrictive, or let's put a boundary around it. And Jupiter's expansive, so it's like trying to contain it, but like trying to open it up. And then Saturn and Aries, Aries oftentimes acts before they even think. And I
Right.
would think the Cancer with Jupiter conjunct Mercury there, it's like, what's the best for the family, or what's the best for our community, or what's the best for our country. It could be, you know, nurturing that. So there could, like, I love how you said the push and the pull, because it's like, Saturn wants to constrict it down and Jupiter's like wants to open it up.
Right.
That was
And then,
great.
and if we look at like, this is set for Washington, D.C., there's this kind of mental energy that is very rooted in the unconscious because it's in the eighth house. So it's very much about secrets being revealed. It's very much about our lives needing our personal inner world needing more attention. And then we have this kind of individual Saturn in Aries, which wants to go it alone, that isn't willing to look at the emotions because that's not what Aries is designed for. So there's maybe kind of this sense of like, I think the healthiest expression on this day is to understand anytime Jupiter or Saturn move into a new sign on that day, there is kind of this supercharged energy where it's like there's an opportunity there. And since that chart is really for the very first time it's moving in this year, I think that's what we should, lean into, the more kind of making the unconscious conscious and knowing that we can do that in a very loving, caring way. That's the highest expression.
Well, thank you for coming on today and talking about this. Is there any other things that you want to leave people with that they can use this Jupiter in Cancer energy this summer?
Let's see. Pets, as I've got my cat on my lap now, pay attention to your pets. It's a great time to add to the family. I no longer am having children, but there are a lot of people out there probably that are watching that are thinking of family planning, and that's something that can be favored as well. So again, just kind of go back to the key words for the sign and the planet. And the planet is all about expansion, all about, something good happening, right? It's like, there's opportunity with Jupiter, and Cancer's everything having to do with the home, the hearth, the family, your parents, your children, your pets, the kitchen. If you think about the center of the home is the kitchen, and that's where that comes from, the nurturance. You feed the baby, the mother feeds the baby, and so food. And it's a fun time to go on like a culinary tour if you've always wanted to do that or something like that. So yeah, I think that would be, just kind of the lighter expression. There's obviously a lot of like, shadow implications, but I think in our own lives, Jupiter and Cancer is a happy one.
Well, thank you for sharing and coming on today. And maybe you'll come back again soon. Maybe we can get together in June and talk about when Jupiter actually goes into Cancer and kind of review of, a lot will happen between now and then.
Lots happening every second, it seems like.
And I want to thank all those that are watching live and all those that come back and watch at a later date. We appreciate it. And you can subscribe. Here's Dabney. She has a YouTube channel at Lawless Astrology. She does consultations and coaching, and has some ongoing classes that you can check out on her website.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add to that, Dabney?
No, that's it. That's great. Yeah, you can just go to my website, go to my YouTube channel, check out what I do, and I'll be happy to come back on.
Great. And then I've been working on having different astrologers come on and talk about the astrological highlights of 2025. A new show is going to be Magical Astrology with Robert Passetti. Justin and I do the astrology forecast each month, the full moon forecast and a Chiron asteroid series. And the Astrology Star Sisters does Chinese astrology, decans using astrology and tarot, dwarf planets, fixed stars, planets stationing, Uranian astrology, and Venus star point astrology. So lots of different things to offer. I will be on Talk Cosmos on February 23rd at 1 p.m. You can watch it live here on my channel. The Archetypal Symbols team will be talking about the Pisces new moon. And again, to get a hold of Dabney, it's lawlessastrology.com, and my website is alightbath.com, and we look forward to hearing from you. And again, Dabney, thank you for coming on my show today, and I'll see you soon.
All right. Take care.
Okay, goodbye for now.